If you think every quarter in your pocket is just ordinary change, then the 1998 Washington quarter will make you think twice, because behind its familiar silver-colored surface lies a story that combines artistry, politics, economics, and a pivotal moment in the history of American coinage. The 1998 quarter was more than just the last regular year of the classic Washington design before the monumental change that began with the 50-state quarters program. In 1999, it represents the closing chapter of an era that had started in 1932 when the United States Mint decided to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth with a coin that would not only circulate widely, but also symbolize the enduring legacy of the first president of the United States. The obverse of the 1998 Washington quarter features John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington based on the bust sculpted by French artist Jean-Antoine Houdon. In the late 18th century, this design had been in use for more than 6 decades by 1998, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history above Washington's head. The word liberty stands as a reminder of the very foundation upon which the United States was built to the left. Of his profile appears the phrase, "In God we trust," and below is the date, 1998, marking the final year before the statehood quarters began. On the reverse of the coin, the image of a heraldic eagle, with its wings spread, occupies the center. This eagle, perched upon a bundle of arrows and framed by olive branches, symbolized both strength in defense and the pursuit of peace. This reverse design, like the obverse, had remained largely unchanged since its debut. The production of the 1998 quarter came at a fascinating crossroads for the mint and for collectors. By this time, quarters had been made not of silver but of copper-nickel-clad composition for more than 30 years, following the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters and reduced it in half-dollars. This change had been driven by rising silver prices and the need to maintain a practical circulating coinage. The 1998 quarters were struck at the major mints of the United States: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each mint mark carrying its own level of appeal for collectors. The Philadelphia Mint struck coins without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint used the D-mint mark, and San Francisco produced proof coins in both clad and silver, versions intended specifically for collectors. What makes the 1998 Washington quarter particularly compelling is that it was the last issue of the regular eagle reverse before the launch of the 50-state quarters program, which would revolutionize American coin collecting. Beginning in 1999, the U.S. Mint introduced a new design for each state released in the order of statehood, and this program captured the attention of millions of Americans who had never collected coins before. But in 1998, nobody knew just how successful the program would be, and so the coins struck in that year quietly became the symbolic end of an era that had lasted more than 65 years. When examining the mintage numbers, the Philadelphia Mint produced well over 1 billion 1998 quarters, while Denver also struck hundreds of millions, ensuring their widespread circulation. Yet it is not the rarity of the coin in terms of sheer numbers that gives it significance. Rather, it is the historical context and transitional role it plays. For collectors, condition matters greatly, and 1998 quarters can still be found in circulation, though most are heavily worn. However, high-grade, uncirculated examples with sharp strikes, brilliant luster, and minimal contact marks are valued, particularly when certified by professional grading services. Proofs from San Francisco, especially the silver proofs, remain popular with collectors due to their mirror-like finishes and frosted design elements. These coins are often included in United States Mint proof sets, which were sold directly to collectors in 1998. The story of the 1998 quarter also cannot be told without exploring the long history of the Washington quarter itself. First issued in 1932 as a temporary, commemorative coin, it was intended to honor George Washington's bicentennial birthday, but it proved so popular that it replaced the standing Liberty quarter permanently. Flanagan's design carried with it the neoclassical dignity of Washington, while providing a clear and functional design that worked well for mass production and circulation over the decades. Subtle modifications were made to the portrait and relief, often due to technical reasons or aesthetic preferences, but the core design remained intact through 1998. By the late 1990s, the Mint recognized that public interest in coinage had grown stagnant, and collectors were yearning for something new. Congress approved the 50-state quarters program in 1997, and it was officially launched in 1999, so the 1998 quarter effectively became the final traditional issue of the Washington Eagle Quarter series. This imbues the coin with a special legacy for collectors, historians, and numismatists. It is the last chapter of one of the most iconic American coin designs, bridging the old and the new. When we look deeper into the cultural role of the 1998 quarter, it represents more than money. It represents continuity in American life. Countless people used it in everyday transactions. From buying a newspaper to making a phone call, it passed through vending machines, toll booths, and cash registers. It jingled in the pockets of millions who never realized that this ordinary piece of change carried the final image of the heraldic eagle before a great transformation was to come. In this way, the 1998 quarter becomes a time capsule, capturing the last moment of the old before the nation embraced a bold new experiment in coin design that would shape the future of collecting. For decades to come, collectors often look for varieties and errors in quarters, and while the 1998 issue does not have as many famous varieties as other years, there are still error coins that fascinate numismatists, such as off-center strikes double. Dies and coins struck on wrong planchets. Each error coin tells its own story of the minting process, and these anomalies turn an ordinary piece of change into a prized collectible worth far more than face value. The 1998 Washington quarter, therefore, is not just another year in the long history of American coinage. It is the coin that marks the end of one of the most enduring chapters in U.S. numismatic tradition. Its design speaks to the artistry of John Flanagan. Its history reflects the evolution of American coinage from silver to clad. Its place in time connects the world before the state quarters. With the explosion of collecting enthusiasm that followed, it remains a coin that every collector who studies American quarters must understand. Because to know the 1998 quarter is to understand the turning point that reshaped the future of numismatics. Imagine holding a simple copper coin in your hand, a coin that millions of Americans once used every single day to buy candy newspapers or a morning cup of coffee, yet hidden within that small coin is a story that stretches back to the heart of the American spirit. The Lincoln penny of 1963 is not just a piece of change, it is a reflection of history, politics, art, economics, and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln. When we dive into the story of the 1963 penny, we uncover a tale that begins decades earlier in 1909, when the Lincoln cent was first issued to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It was the first circulating American coin to feature a real person, and it carried with it the power of symbolism representing honesty, leadership, and unity. By 1963, the Lincoln penny had been in circulation for more than half a century, and the United States was a nation in transition. The early 1960s were a time of optimism and tension. The country was experiencing rapid economic growth. The space race was underway, and civil rights movements were gaining momentum at the same time. International pressures and Cold War rivalries shaped policy decisions and influenced every level of society. Coins minted in this period were more than pocket change. They were silent witnesses to an age of transformation. The Lincoln penny of 1963 was struck at two principal mints, Philadelphia and Denver. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without mint marks, while the Denver Mint carried the letter D beneath the date together. They created hundreds of millions of these cents, ensuring their wide circulation in every corner of the country to the average person. It was just a penny, but to the collector and historian, the 1963 cent holds a mirror to the culture and industry of its time. These coins were struck primarily from an alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving them the distinctive reddish-brown tone that collectors still admire. Today, their weight was 11 grams and their diameter was 19 millimeters, specifications that had been standard for decades and would remain until the dramatic changes of 1982 when rising copper prices forced a shift in composition. The obverse design of the 1963 penny retained. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner in 1909, his profile facing right is a design that remains instantly recognizable even to those who are not coin collectors above his head. The motto, "In God We Trust," is prominently displayed. The word "Liberty" rests to the left, and the year 1963 is positioned to the right for coins minted in Denver. The small d appears just below the date. This design, although simple, has endured for over a century, and its familiarity is part of what makes it so iconic. On the reverse of the 1963 penny, we find the wheat ears design created to accompany the Lincoln portrait when the coin first debuted in 1909. Two stylized sheaves of wheat frame the words 1 cent and United States of America above them. The national motto, E pluribus unum, reminds us of unity through diversity. By 1963, this reverse design was nearing the end of its era, as it would be replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial design. However, many 1963 pennies still featured remnants of earlier striking techniques, and their artistic clarity often varies depending on how well the dies were prepared. To understand the full story of the 1963 Lincoln penny, we must also consider the broader economic context of the time. In 1963, the United States was moving through a period of sustained growth. The Kennedy administration sought to strengthen the economy through tax reforms and public investments. Inflation was low, unemployment was improving, and consumer spending was high. In this environment, coins circulated widely, and the production of cents was crucial to everyday commerce. The mint had to balance efficiency with quality, ensuring that billions of coins could be produced quickly yet accurately. Any small change in metal prices or minting technology could have wide-reaching consequences, which is why the composition of the penny remained stable until the economic pressures of later decades forced adjustments. Collectors today often study the 1963 penny for its varieties, errors, and minting quirks, while most examples are common and hold only face value in circulated condition. There are rare exceptions. Coins with doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or off-center strikes can fetch significant interest and value for numismatists. These varieties are not merely curiosities, they are historical evidence of the minting process and the challenges of mass production. In the early 1960s, each error tells a story of human oversight or mechanical imperfection. And for many collectors, the hunt for these anomalies is part of the thrill of numismatics. But the story of the 1963 penny does not end with its minting or even its circulation. It also lives on in the cultural memory of the time. A penny in 1963 could buy a stick of gum or a piece of candy. School children might have filled jars with pennies as savings, and countless Americans dropped them into wishing wells or pressed them into the hands of children as tokens of luck. The Lincoln cent was everywhere, from city streets to rural general stores, and in its quiet way, it linked generations together. As we expand this history into a full journey lasting hours, we can trace the origins of the Lincoln cent back to the political climate of 1909, the influence of President Theodore Roosevelt on coin design, the artistry of Victor David Brenner, and the evolution of American coinage through the first half of the 20th century. We can follow the penny through the Great Depression, when copper shortages forced experimentation with alloys, through World War II, when steel cents were introduced in 1943, and into the post-war years when prosperity and innovation reshaped American life. By the time we arrive at 1963, the Lincoln penny stands as both a familiar constant and a reflection of change. To fully explore the 1963 penny, we would also journey into the lives of collectors and historians, those who preserve rolls of uncirculated coins in pristine condition, those who search for rare mint errors under magnifying glasses, and those who study the economic reports of the mint to understand how production decisions were made. We would look at how the penny functioned in the economy of the time, what role it played in the everyday life of Americans, and why it remains so symbolic today, even as discussions continue about whether the penny should still be produced in the 21st century. The Lincoln penny of 1963 is more than a coin. It is a chapter in the long story of American currency. It reflects the craftsmanship of the mint, the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, the economic realities of its age, and the enduring connection between a nation and its money. To hold one today is to touch a piece of living history, a reminder that even the smallest denomination can carry with it the weight of culture, art, and memory. And when we unravel its story, we discover that the humble 1963 Lincoln penny is not just pocket change, but a window into the soul of America. Imagine holding a coin that not only represents the turn of a century, but also embodies the tradition of American coinage, stretching back more than 6 decades, a coin that looks ordinary to the untrained eye, but carries with it a story of design, artistry, historical legacy, and numismatic intrigue that is far deeper than its 5-cent face value. The 1999 Jefferson nickel is not just another piece of pocket change. It is a relic of an era when the United States Mint was closing out the 20th century, while unknowingly preparing for one of the greatest transformations in modern coin history. This is the story of that coin. The 1999 Jefferson nickel stands as one of the final issues of the long-running design by sculptor Felix Schlag, whose work first appeared in 1938 after winning a design competition that replaced the Buffalo nickel. Schlag's Jefferson nickel became one of the most recognizable and enduring coinage designs in the United States for over 65 years by 1999. The design had already cemented itself as a familiar symbol of American currency, with the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the image of Monticello Jefferson's Virginia home on the reverse. When you look at the 1999 issue, you are seeing a continuation of that tradition, but also a coin that was minted at a crucial moment in American history. The obverse of the coin features the left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence. Schlag's portrait is easily identifiable by its sharp cheekbones, the detailed hair tied back in a queue, and Jefferson's stern but composed expression. The inscriptions include the word "Liberty" written in Jefferson's own cursive style, as well as "In God We Trust," and the date, 1999. This portrait by 1999 was a long-standing staple of American coinage, familiar to generations of Americans who carried these nickels daily. On the reverse, the iconic image of Monticello dominates the design. It is a neoclassical building inspired by Italian Renaissance architecture and one of the most recognizable landmarks in American history. Schlag's depiction of Monticello features its dome centered with the name Monticello inscribed beneath in a straight serif font. The words United States of America and E pluribus unum surround the design, along with the denomination 5 cents. This image of Monticello appeared on the coin uninterrupted from 1938 until the early years of the 21st century, and the 1999 issue is one of the last, before the historic redesigns that began in 2004 with the Westward Journey nickel series. The production of the 1999 Jefferson nickel was significant in both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with hundreds of millions struck for circulation, as the coin remained an essential part of daily commerce. During that time, the Philadelphia mint coins were struck without a mint mark, while those from Denver bear the D-mint mark on the obverse to the right of Monticello. Collectors also recognize that San Francisco produced proof versions of the 1999 nickel with deep cameo finishes. These proof strikes intended for collectors were created with polished, dies and planchets, making them far more visually striking than their circulation counterparts. By 1999, the Jefferson nickel had already been minted for 61 consecutive years and was preparing to cross into a new millennium. The coin, therefore, symbolizes both continuity and change. It represents the final years of traditional minting before the early 2000s brought about sweeping changes in the nickel's design, and it marks the culmination of a century where American coinage largely remained consistent in its designs while balancing artistry with national symbolism. The 1999 Jefferson nickel also carries significance in terms of minting technology. The United States Mint by the late 1990s had adopted increasingly modern techniques that improved die longevity, strike quality, and distribution. The coins of this era often exhibit strong strikes with sharp details, though variations exist depending on mint location, circulation, wear, and collector handling. Numismatically, the 1999 Jefferson nickel may appear common given its high mintage numbers, but rarity in coin collecting is not always defined by raw population. Instead, it can be determined by grade condition and special varieties. Coins that remain in mint state or proof-like conditions are far scarcer than circulated examples, and collectors seek out the highest graded specimens certified by professional grading services. In particular, full-step nickels are highly prized, a designation that refers to the visibility of the steps on Monticello in the reverse design. Many Jefferson nickels, even fresh from the mint, lack fully struck steps due to die wear or striking pressure, so examples from 1999 that display sharp, complete steps are significantly more desirable and valuable. Another dimension to the 1999 Jefferson nickel story is its place in the greater arc of Jefferson nickel history leading into the 21st century. In just a few years, the design would undergo major changes first. In 2004, with the Westward Journey series, which honored the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and then in 2006, when a completely redesigned portrait of Jefferson by Jamie Franke debuted, making the 1999 issue one of the final classic Jefferson nickels. It serves as a closing chapter of an era stretching from 1938 through 2003, a period where the American public grew deeply familiar with Schlag's design. For collectors and historians, the 1999 Jefferson nickel is a reminder of how even the most common coins can carry stories of art, politics, economy, and culture. Coins are objects that move silently through our hands, often unnoticed, yet each issue carries the weight of its time. The 1999 nickel circulated through a United States that was on the edge of a new millennium, with its booming economy, rapid technological innovation, and a public unaware that its currency would soon undergo transformation. When you hold a 1999 Jefferson nickel, you are holding more than a piece of 5-cent change. You are holding the last breath of a design era that had endured wars, social change, and decades of American history. You are holding a link to Thomas Jefferson's legacy and to Felix Schlag's artistry. You are holding a piece of the narrative that ties together American coinage across centuries. And this is why the 1999 Jefferson nickel deserves attention from numismatists, historians, and everyday enthusiasts alike. It is a coin that bridges past and future. It is a coin that symbolizes tradition on the edge of transformation, and it is a coin whose value extends far beyond its modest denomination, because the story it carries is truly priceless.